Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to hike to Dobbs Cabin on the Momyer Trail here in the San Gorgonio Wilderness in Southern California. Now, this hike's got a lot going for it. It's shady, it's away from the crowds, and it's kind of tough but not too tough. We're looking at about 12 miles round trip with about 3,000 feet of climbing. I'll give you all the details in the guide on HikingGuy.com, so go there. It's a little buggy today. I'm getting attacked here, but go to the website for all of the details. I'll also give you some backstory on who Dobbs was, as well as Momyer in the guide if you want a little historical context there. But otherwise, let me show you the video. And as you're watching, if you're liking it, if you can give me a little thumbs up, I appreciate it. And a big thank you to all of my supporters out there. I could not do these videos without you, so thank you, thank you, thank you.
This is the parking area. It's pretty massive given the kind of mellowness of the trail, but there's a nice trail board. There are no bathrooms here or water. You have to go a little bit upstream to the picnic area, but here's the trailhead. Now we're going down there. There's that unofficial use trail. I usually just take this wider sweeping switchback around because that use trail looks a little rutted, but we're basically going to go down to this picnic bench here and then continue down to the Mill Creek wash. Now, Mill Creek has a history of flash floods, and you know, it can be pretty hairy. If you get down here and it's raging, you're not going to want to cross, but you can see here it's just sort of a trickle. In the spring, it's bigger than this, but we're going to cross over to where I just pointed. You're going to look for a sign over there. That's the wilderness sign, or the alert that you need a permit at the wilderness sign. And it's on the other side. So when you get to the wash, just look across and look for the sign here. Now when you get up to the sign, we're going to go off to the right here. The trail can be a little bit hard to spot because there's sort of use trails around here, but we're going to go off to the right and then do this little uphill stretch right here. And then we're going to start going upstream along Mill Creek, which is down on the right there. Mill Creek Canyon right in there. We're on this for a couple of minutes, and then the trail will do a 180 swing and it'll start heading west once again. And this area is pretty rolly. We really haven't started the climb. It's not like the Momyer Creek Trail, if you've ever done that one, where once you cross, you're basically going up a really steep slope. It is pretty mellow in the beginning. There's all these beautiful oaks. It's really a kind of a pristine area. It hasn't really been hit by fires as much as other areas around here in recent years. Now when you come out of the trees, it'll start to wind uphill a little bit, and then when you hit this first switchback here, which is, you can see, it's easy to spot or it's easy to miss. There's a use trail going downhill. You're not going to go downhill, but this is where the climb is starting in earnest, and you can see Mill Creek down there to your right. And it's also, you know, a very shaded hike, as I mentioned earlier. As we go through these oaks, there are some sections that are exposed, but in general you have lots and lots of shade here. I always find it interesting. This is about 6,000 feet, and there's these cactus up here, this little prickly pear cactus. It's crazy because within a mile we're going to be in the big trees. It feels more like the Sierra as we go up, but you're going to do this series of switchbacks. The climb is not as bad, even this part, as Momyer Creek. It's steep. You can see here how steep it is, but it's really not so bad as you climb up here. There's this neat little rest area towards the top that somebody set up, little benches and everything. Really, really cool as we go up here. And then towards the top of the climb, we're going to enter the San Gorgonio Wilderness area, and this is the border with the wilderness area. I have a whole video talking about why these signs are so far back from the trailhead. It might be interesting, and if you're wondering about why they're always back like that. Once you pass the sign, it's still a little bit uphill, but generally it's winding until we get to this junction. Now, at this junction, we're going to leave the Momyer Trail, which is off to the left, goes up towards San Bernardino Peak, and we're going to go towards Alger Camp, which is straight, and this is called now the Falls Creek Trail. And as we come out here, nice views, and that bump straight ahead of us, directly underneath the sun right there, that's Dobbs Peak, named after the same guy, John Dobbs, and I'll talk about why this area is named after him in the guide. You can check that out. This is one of the most spectacular sections of the trail, in my opinion. We're up against the cliff wall on the left here. You have the Alger Creek kind of watershed and gully down to the right. The Falls Creek Trail used to go down to Mill Creek, but some homeowners shut it down in the 1960s, and the Boy Scouts built this little connector here, from what I understand, between Momyer and the old Falls Creek Trail. But here you can see it's about a mile since those prickly pear cactus, and now we're in the big tall trees of the high mountains. It's really, really spectacular. Once we get to this point, we're actually going to do a little descent. After that big climb, it's sort of rolling, coming back here. We will need some energy to go back uphill, but you can see there's some switchbacks here as we head down to Alger Camp, Alger Creek. You can also see the flies are out, the bugs are out today. It's pretty intense here, but there you can see the trail winding downhill towards the creek and the bugs. There's more bugs this year in Southern California, in my opinion. Now here we are at the junction. We're going to make the left to continue on the trail, but if you want to go down to the tent sites of Alger Creek or Alger Creek Camp, they're down over there to the right, and you can see this starts up here. There's definitely a bunch of different cleared tent sites over here, and you can get a permit for those on the permit site for the San Gorgonio Wilderness Association, but I'll put a link to that in the guide as well. But we're going to go upstream a little bit and cross over Alger Creek to continue on the Falls Creek Trail towards Dobbs Cabin. You can see there's a bunch of different ways to cross. This is late summer. It's pretty low. It's pretty mellow. This generally always flows if you're looking for water. I think I've always seen water here whenever I'm here, and it definitely rages or can rage a little bit more in the spring. But we're going to cross over and head upstream over here. Sorry, uphill once we go across the stream. And we have a little bit of an uphill section here as we climb out of the gully. And there's this really nice vantage point looking back as we climb up. On the left, that little pointy, not that one, just to the left, that the little pointy peak is San Bernardino East, and the big lump on the right is Anderson Peak. And you can climb up there. There's a nice hike up from Forsey Creek Trailhead, which I have on my website as well. Now between Alger and Dobbs, it's sort of rolling, it mellows out a little bit. You have these little kind of alpine meadow areas that we go through. Really mellow and easy trail here. As we continue along, obviously nice views. We can see down, there's Mount Baldy in the distance, way back there, Angeles National Forest. But the views are nice, and you can see it's still pretty shaded here. Now, towards the end, we're going to start climbing a little bit more. And again, it's not a big mountain climb at this point. The big climbing's over, but we have a little bit of a climb as we come up to the last junction before the creek. And here we are. When we get to this, there's a little flat area and a little bench. The main trail heads up towards the saddle, towards Anderson Peak, up to the left there. But we're going to take this little spur trail. Here's the sign. You can see it's pointing up towards Saxton Camp, in the higher parts of the trail, but we're going to go straight down this little spur trail towards Dobbs Camp. You can see there's a sign on the tree. Dobbs Camp, Dobbs Cabin, one and the same things. There's a trail camp there where you can camp as well. And we're going to head downhill. It does get a little bit steep as we go down here. Eventually you'll see the creek down there, Falls Creek. And we're going to go down to the creek, and this can get a little confusing when you get down here. The tent sites are actually crossed on the other side. So when you get to the creek, the best thing to do is just to make the hard right-hand turn and follow the creek down. We're going to go underneath this big log in front of us. And once you go past the log, we're going to come out at the creek, and there's a few ways to cross over. There's not an official trail, I don't think, at this point. But if you come out at the confluence of these two streams here, there's a little waterfall. You can go straight here over to the right and find the tent sites, but there are nice views, plenty of water, and again, it flows all year here. And again, just off the right there, or you can go downstream a little bit and cross over a little bit downstream. And once you get in, we can cross over to the other side. Again, there's not an official trail as far as I know over on this side of the creek, but there are a bunch of different tent sites around here, and we're just going to climb up and explore a little bit. There's a flat tent site right there. It's a great, really mellow place to camp. I mean, you feel like you're miles away from anything. But if we go downstream about 100 yards from where we reach the creek, we'll get to the main flat area. And this is what I was told was where the cabin was. But I've heard some conflicting information. I'll talk a little bit about that on the website too. But this is obviously a big cleared, leveled area. And from here, you can explore the area and then just head back the way you came. And if you stick around for a second, I'll show you what the hike looks like on a map. Here's the hike route. It's an out and back starting down here. We do this big climb and then sort of wind around the ridge to Dobbs Cabin, Dobbs Camp, and then you just head on back. Now down here is that big parking area I mentioned earlier for the Momyer Creek Trail. We're going to cross over Mill Creek. This is where we found that sign, went upstream for a little bit and then doubled back. And then this was a pretty mellow uphill here. We got to that first switchback and then we start to climb in earnest. And there's some random switchbacks as we go up here along the ridge. Our first landmark and sort of the end of the big climb is the turnoff. This is where the Momyer Creek Trail goes up here, up along the ridge to San Bernardino Peak. We're going to continue on the Falls Creek Trail down to Alger Camp right here. This is that downhill. Remember I said there was a downhill down to the creek and then one back up. And then once we come here, we're following the ridge along. You can see here it rolls. There's some ups and downs along the way, but nothing too crazy. We start to angle upwards a little bit until we get to this last junction right over here. And this is where the Falls Creek Trail went up towards Saxton Camp and Anderson Peak up in the distance up here. But instead, we're going to go down the spur, and then we're going to head down the sharp downhill till we get to the camp area. Now, here's the creek over here. Let me see if I can get in a little bit tighter. It's all wooded, so it's not super useful. We get down to the creek. We basically go downstream. This is where that waterfall was. We can cross over by the waterfall and then just head downstream to the cabin site. There's a bunch of tent sites that are up here a little bit. This is Falls Creek coming down here, and it joins another creek over there. This is their confluence here, but this is the tent site. And then once you're done here, you want to come back out and go back the way you came. Save a little bit of energy. It's good to have a snack here because you will have some of these little uphills going back, which can be kind of abrasive if you're used to just hiking uphill and downhill. And anyway, that's the hike, guys. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments on YouTube. If you have any updates, leave them in the comments on YouTube, and I'll see you on the trails.